Initial Thoughts is a spoiler-free movie review series. All opinions are my own. Hi everyone, welcome back to Initial Thoughts, a series in which we talk about films as and when they are released. Today's film we're talking about is Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, which is directed by George Miller and stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth. So almost a decade ago, in 2015, we had Mad Max Fury Road, a movie that I came too late. I didn't get seeing probably until about 2 or 3 years after, when I caught up with some movies I'd missed, and that was one of them. And it was a movie that I was really impressed with. When I talked about it in my 5 of the Best series, it was my second favourite film of that year, and it was a movie that I didn't really expect to love as much as I did. And that probably applies to most people that's seen it. When you heard about Mad Max getting a reboot, reset, whatever you want to call it, you know, obviously they had those ones all those years ago with Mel Gibson, which I admittedly haven't seen, and I imagine not many people have seen in the recent times. I don't think they've transcended, or they've really carried through the generations, those movies, like some other movies of the time would have. I went into Mad Max Fury Road, obviously a good cast. Got people like Tom Hardy, who at that time was certainly one of the biggest movie stars in the world at the time. You got Charlize Theron, who's always brilliant. And you had a cast that really, there was enough there to latch on to if they did right. But actually, the best thing about Mad Max Fury Road wasn't really the performances, in a weird way. Because the best thing about Mad Max Fury Road, and actually carrying this into Furiosa, and that will be certainly the case for both movies, the best thing about those movies, they're not full of charisma. Actually, they're devoid of charisma. What they are is all action. And not in a cliche cinema way, you know, blockbuster, this is all action, blah blah. These movies are pure, and I think I called it when I talked about Mad Max Fury Road previously, vehicular warfare. Just, you know, these kind of wacky races style craziness of people jumping from vehicles, fighting in vehicles, very unique set pieces, long drawn out set pieces of just, you know, it's a real feat that they were able to achieve this. And in George Miller as the director, who of course directed Mad Max Fury Road and now Furiosa, it's clear you've got someone there that knows exactly what they're doing for this very niche subgenre of this film, or of this type of film, because there's not many movies like either of these. They're very unique for that. But these action set pieces are what made these, and certainly for Fury Road, and had me excited for Furiosa, these big, massive, amazing set pieces were what had me hooked, and probably like a lot of people had them hooked. And then you add to that Mad Max, in Mad Max Fury Road, you have a character story there of not only Max but Furiosa in that film, and you do get quite bonded to the characters even though they aren't charismatic. It isn't like a Tarantino film where every character is oozing with charisma. It's actually the opposite. There's probably as minimal charisma in a blockbuster as there can be with these characters. They aren't joking, they aren't bouncing off each other. There's none of that. What they are is just people fighting to survive. And something that I think both movies, and I know I'm kind of blending the line talking about both here, but they are very similar in that way. What Furiosa and Fury Road does is it blends the line of, there isn't a clear hero and villain. Yes, you've got our lead performance, you've got the surrounding characters, you've got what looks to be a villain, but in this scenario there's not really a good guy and a bad guy, there's just people fighting to survive. And it is an interesting premise in that. And honestly, you know, I'm going to start talking more about Furiosa now than Fury Road, but the reason I do kind of parallel the two and talk about both, because they are very similar. And I'll be honest with you, when I heard that they were making Furiosa with Anya Taylor-Joy, with Chris Hemsworth, I wonder, okay, this is either going to go one of two ways. You're either going to get a cash grab building off a very popular movie that came out a good while ago, now almost a decade, or you're going to get something that's filled with the same passion and love and care for the project that, you know, the original, the 2015 film had. Which of the two did we get? What I will say, first of all, is I did prefer Fury Road to Furiosa. I thought Fury Road did everything as well as it could, and I think for what it is, and I think this is kind of the key point, for this very niche subgenre of action films, adventure films, survival films, whatever you want a category you want to put it in, I think Fury Road does it absolutely perfectly, and it's kind of the perfect film it needs to be for that, because if it misses a step, it just isn't anywhere near as good as it was. For Furiosa, I want to talk about the good, because there is a hell of a lot of it. There's a lot of great stuff in here. And everything I've just mentioned, there are particularly things like vehicular warfare, the large set pieces, the visuals kind of throughout. It's an amazing film to look at, as was 2015. But what I missed, and what I found wasn't as strong, because don't get me wrong, Furiosa is great. And we're going to get on to why I think it's great and what I really enjoyed about the film, but also why I didn't feel it was anywhere near as good the quality as Fury Road was. And being totally transparent, for me, the reason I didn't love this as much as Fury Road is a simple one. I didn't think the story was as good. I didn't think the characters, and I want to say that kind of with an asterisk, but I didn't think the characters in it were as engaging, and I think it just missed a little bit of a mark on that side of things, because I didn't feel totally connected, because this is a long enough film. This is 2.5 hours, and I don't remember feeling ever checked out of Fury Road. There was a few moments here, particularly kind of in the first act, maybe the first 45 minutes, where while the young performance of young Furiosa by Alila Brown, I hope I'm saying that right, is really good as far as child performances go. She is really good, and actually she's kind of the most underrated part of this film. But for the first kind of 45 minutes, as I say, I wasn't totally hooked. It wasn't a, let's get back into this world. It was kind of more of, and I know it's been 10 years or almost 10 years, and I understand that you kind of have to reintroduce us, but I think the reintroduction could have been stronger, and certainly that first part did put a dampener on it for me. And I don't think, and I know that in Fury Road there wasn't that lull before it really got going. But once this gets going, once Furiosa really kicks into gear, and it's kind of broken up into subsections, it literally has like a title card of 1, 2, 3, and kind of through the film. As it gets into kind of 3 and 4, that's when this film goes, okay, we know what you're here for. Let's do it. Let's go. The vehicular warfare, as I've mentioned. The visuals. The action scenes. The brutality. It's all here. And as a fan of Fury Road, I got a lot of the things that I wanted from it in that. In the side of, because I didn't get a story that I loved. A story that was totally memorable. Because the story itself is kind of, you've certainly seen it in different variations before. Character gets picked out of their normal life and gets kind of Alice in Wonderland scenario. It is a little bit like that. And a very dark and very different version, of course. But talking about that, and as I say, Alila Brown, I was very impressed with as young Furiosa in the first part of the film, and actually she's probably the best part of that. But once we get into the Anya Taylor-Joy start, as she gets going and as she is early Furiosa and is kind of through for the rest of the film, Anya Taylor-Joy is great. Anya Taylor-Joy is kind of great everything I've seen her in. The Witch, The Northman, even something like Super Mario as a voice. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a performance of her yet that I go, she's really, that's just a throwaway performance. The Menu as well, that was a one, and while I didn't love that film, I thought she was definitely the best part of it. So she is one of the better up and coming actresses in the world, and I have no doubt of that, because she brings a lot to it, and she brings a lot of star power at this point, because she has quite a CV and quite a list of films she's been in already from even a younger age. In The Witch, I can't remember what age she is in The Witch, but she's very young. And to be this level of actress in quite a short time, Anya Taylor-Joy is great. And I have to say, when you think of her, yes, she's done the darker roles, like, you know, the Eggers films of The Witch and The Northman. She's done the lighthearted things, as I say, like Super Mario. But if you'd have said to me, okay, we're gonna do the backstory to Charlize Theron's character of Furiosa, and we're gonna get Anya Taylor-Joy, I'd go, really? I don't know if that's... It's not who I would have picked. But what do I know? Because Anya Taylor-Joy is great. She does so well in the dark side of this character. And of course, with this being quite a dark and gritty and harsh film, you know, she is not allowed to be in any way charismatic or joyful or smile or anything like that. And when you think about that, you think of Anya Taylor-Joy with that charisma, and whether it's being harsh or whether it's being joyful, that's what you think of when you see her. But she really is... She's a really brilliant actress. And I thought her performance in here was great, particularly when she kind of, in a weird way, takes on the Furiosa role completely and goes full Charlize Theron of it. She's really good. The other performance, of course, is our other lead, is Chris Hemsworth. And Chris Hemsworth is someone that I like a lot. I wouldn't say I love him as an actor. I think he's good. I think in, of course, the Marvel stuff with Thor, I think he's good. I thought he grows with the role, although I did think he took a little bit of a step back in Love and Thunder. But I thought when he was at Ragnarok and Infinity War and around that time, he knew what he was doing with the character and he was enjoying it. And that kind of feeling of enjoying your character seemed to come across here, because it's clear that Chris Hemsworth is having a lot of fun playing Dementus in this, and playing this kind of over-the-top, crazed villain. And again, I use that word lightly, villain, because there's also Mortan Joe, who was in Fury Road in this. So is he the actual villain? In some ways, Furiosa's the villain. You know, the lines are very blurred, and it's a very grey area hero and villain scenario here. But Chris Hemsworth is... I thought this is one of his better performances that I've ever seen from him. I was really impressed by him. Actually, you know, that kind of extends to the whole cast. There wasn't any performances in here I found was particularly, you know, letting the side down. Actually, I thought everybody was doing a damn good job. And I think Chris Hemsworth, as I say, one of his better performances that I can remember of seeing his. I wouldn't really put him as an actor that has this much fun in a way, but also is able to bring such layers to a character, because him as Dementus is one of the better villains this year. And again, I keep using the word villains because I can't think of another word, but he is and he isn't. It's a very interesting dynamic, and that stuff had me intrigued, and that stuff made me enjoy this film a lot. The only thing that I felt, you know, sometimes a film can be defined by its bookends, and if you get what I mean when I say that, because the first 45 of this film and kind of the last 10-15 minutes of Furiosa aren't that great, and are kind of like, okay, because the first part, as I say, with the younger Furiosa, is just set the scene, but it isn't that exciting, it isn't that hook you in, and then once you get going, it's good. But while we're in the middle of the film is absolutely brilliant. The middle hour, for example, is really good, really good stuff. Not only with the visuals and the vehicles and all that stuff, but also the character stuff is good too in the middle part of it. It's actually when it gets to its climax at the end that I thought it kind of missed the mark by the end, and I couldn't really get away from that when I was leaving the cinema last night. I just thought, is that the best way we could have ended it? I know you're trying to tie up, and I know as a prequel your hands are tied because you want it to tie in, and you want it to be, right, okay, we know exactly where this ends off to become this. But I just think there was a slightly wasted opportunity to end on a better finale here, and I think that would have bumped it up in my ratings, and it maybe even would have tested the waters of being better than Fury Road. Although I think Fury Road as a whole is stronger because it ends well, it starts well, and the middle is really good. So there isn't a lull, whereas I think Furiosa had, kind of, as I say, the bookends. The bookends of this were, I wasn't totally impressed. But saying all that, I did love this film for what it did. I loved it for what I wanted to get. The crazy set pieces were there. The visuals were there. Lead performances were really good. I just think it missed the mark on story-wise, and I think that's where it's really hampered for me. But I don't think that would take it too much down on the score-wise, because I did get a lot from this film, and I think everybody will get a lot from this film. And you probably, like me, if you enjoy Fury Road, you'll probably feel the same. Or you'll probably feel a similar way of, Furiosa's great, but it's not as good as Fury Road. Which was a hard feat in the first place, by the way. But what I will say before we get on to ratings and stuff, I would love them to continue building on this world and this IP. I think this universe of Mad Max and, this wasteland and everything, I think there's such potential there. And I think now they've dipped their toe back into this after a while, and they'll hopefully, I would say this will do well at the box office. I think there's potential to continue this. I think there's potential to, revisit this, maybe with a television series, maybe with more movies, who knows. I think it'll all depend on, of course, how the box office numbers are, but it is a world I would like to revisit as a fan, and if they're able to achieve what they achieved on both of these films, and particularly the action side and the visual side, then I will be seated to see these films as long as they make them, because Furiosa is great in that regard. I just think the story could have been stronger at the points when it needed to be most, the start and the end. Because you know what it's like with movies. How you end is how you remember it, really, for a lot of things. And that was the only thing that really bumped it down in my regards. But I'm still going to give it a very high score. As you can see, IMDb has been... They're feeling very positive on it. And so am I. But I'm just not pumping it into the 9s and 10s, for sure. Furiosa Mad Max Saga gets a very worthy, but a slightly... I hope for slightly more, 8 out of 10. And I had hoped that it would maybe have pushed into the 8.5, maybe even the 9. But when I think back to what I gave Fury Road, I think I gave it a 9 out of 10. And I did enjoy it more. So I think this is certainly a mark below that, just for the story points. But for everything else that we loved about Fury Road, I think you're going to get it here. And that's why I would definitely recommend the film to anybody. I think it's a film that people will probably enjoy more than I did in the sense of the story. Because if you're just going in for the craziness, the madness, the survival aspect, you're going to get a lot from this. And I wonder how it would hold up on rewatches. I think on a rewatch I might even like it even slightly less, just because of those story points and having to revisit that first section of the film. But once it picks up in the middle part for sure is so good. And it's one of there's a long set piece that kind of starts us into the greatness of this film with, the tanker and, the vehicles and everything. And that's the first real set piece of this movie like that. And that's maybe one of my favourite scenes of this year so far. In a year so far already that has had some brilliant movie moments. That's up there. So there is good in Furiosa, don't get that twisted. There's a lot to enjoy here. And I would recommend it, for sure. You go and for your own opinion. Of course, I'm just giving you what I thought. And yeah, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to me talking about the movies. If you want to stick around, hit subscribe. I'd appreciate you so much for it. Leave a like, let me know you enjoyed this one. And if you do, I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Before you go, here are some of my other videos. For updates and information on upcoming videos, the best place to find us is my Twitter. Much love, everyone.